All right? And the three elements of hypergamy are going to be the sexual dimorphisms of desire and selection, the physical traits that trigger women's desires. This is going to be the elements of size, muscularity, when you look at agility, your general fitness level, the prime species of a man. The second is going to be actually a social behavior. These are going to be social traits of dominance, of aggressiveness. These are your alpha traits, alpha male traits. Socialization, boldness, assertiveness, self-reliance, so forth. The last one is going to be your social standing, and that is going to be based on your status, your ambition, what you've done with your life, where you are. The old hallbacks of power, wealth, fame, and money. I've doubled up on one. But those are the old hallmarks. They get mixed up into a variety of degrees. These get played out. Remove those from the issue and you're in trouble. Quite frankly, relationship equity, the amount of time you've been involved with her, the house you have, the cars you've had, the matching black labs you have, the number of children you have, how nice a guy you had, the number of chick flicks you want. She doesn't care. She may not care, but on a base biological level, she will actually act out. And people act on base biological needs before they will social conventions. And hypergamy is her baseline value and need as a human species. Individually, there will be some other things, and it'll be important to address those as well. So as we move into, for example, that's the contextual environment in which we're going to be building, and it is a hazardous one. This is no land of milk and honey. This is why you need to be serious. You need to go in with your eyes open. If you're going to build in this environment, we need to be able to have a foundation that's going to be able to support it. That's going to be starting with you. You need to make sure that you are okay with you, who you are, and your life, and to get right with that. Your sense of self-worth, self-esteem, and self-confidence in yourself will dictate the course of your life. The second part on all this is actually moving on to a bit to it. Let me grab a little bit to drink, pardon me. Is looking at yourself, if your self needs, your developmental needs. In a lot of cases, these are going to be dependency needs. These are things based on your developmental tasks as a child, as you grew up, as you transition to an adult. Anytime there's a void, and because we know there are going to be voids because no parent is perfect enough to raise a child complete and whole, that you're going to actually have some of these and you're going to need to work through them, is that when you don't have some of these developmental tasks resolved, they become dependency needs. They become these elements where you have separation anxiety. Anytime when you feel you have a need for a relationship, when you have a need that she completes me, that's a dependency need. Okay? Notice those. Be aware of those. The second one, and it's going to be a real critical, it's subtle, is that we tell ourselves a number of myths growing up, whether they're childhood, young adult, of what our sense of reality is of our world. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be loved? What does it mean to be in a long-term relationship? And a lot of times we develop these frameworks and we never revisit them as adults. We never revisit these ideas back as grown adults to check it. In many cases, we've outgrown them and don't realize it, or they're no longer function in the manner in which we do, but we desperately cling to them. You know, personally, I've spoken before about having heroes in your lives and the personal failures of an individual or hero as a real man failed. A lot of them, at times, they can be imaginary. They could be, fictional characters or these ideas of it. I had a close friend that just idealized John Wayne. Not John Wayne as a man, but what he represented as a man. By God, he was going to go through the information age as John Wayne that never really existed, from all the cowboy shows. It's affected his life. It's affected his employment opportunities. It's affected his education, the relationships he's in. All right? Realize that when your childhood myths no longer meet to today's needs or your values today, and if you don't look at them, you're going into life at a deficit. You're going in with the deck stacked against you. And this is, by the way, something you control. This is absolutely something you control. The second is going to be a fairly simple one. We need to actively screen our partners. We need to look at our partners. We need to identify what their objectives are. We need to look and evaluate these women to find out what their dependency needs are, what their developmental tasks are that they need to be actually on. Because one of the things about a developmental task is a relationship can help resolve it. You can learn to learn a particular developmental task within a relationship and grow from it. But once that developmental task is over, typically so is the relationship. Unfortunately, we cling to it, and we cling on to it too long. So understanding that if there's the reason to be in a particular relationship is the developmental task, and we're brought together because we're mutually trying to resolve these, and that's over, it's time to start looking to let go in an honest, respectful way. All right? Ultimately, your developmental tasks are your responsibility, but we need to screen our partners to make sure that we can handle what their developmental tasks are. Dating crazy is awesome, all right? For the excitement. But if you cannot handle it emotionally, if you cannot hold that woman as an individual and care for her in a manner in which she needs, it is going to play havoc with you. Go fuck crazy. Have a great time with crazy. Don't own it. Don't try to shelter it. Don't try to corral it. All right? I know I wasn't prepared for it when I tried. And that's my fault. All right? The next element we need to look at, and this is key. This is going back to hypergamy. Desire and attraction are absolutely non-negotiable in relationships. You must meet base biological needs of attraction and desire. Without those, you are absolutely, standing on one leg, and probably even worse than that. Ultimately, what we're going to be looking at is the elements that wreck a marriage when we ignore it in relationships with hypergamy, whether it's your physical standing, like for example, I could drop 40 pounds and increase my sexual worth rather dramatically. Okay? I could sit down and learn, dominant skills of setting boundaries, setting attitudes, learning to lead and developing consensus and develop socialization skills. These are going to be social standings. I can actually fire up my ambition. Okay? Take my career seriously. Look to provide. Be accountable. One of the most important, this is not sexy news, guys, having 6 months to 12 months in savings as an emergency fund will prevent you from hypergamy. How? Lose a job and see how your anxiety goes through the roof. Your ability to, quote, provide for not only for yourself, but for the relationship. It's hard to be a man if you're not providing. And I'll even argue you don't actually physically have to provide later on. All right? But having that as a backstop, it's conservative, but it answers the base biological need of security. And these trump social conventions. These trump social needs. It's terribly important. And of all the four social dynamics in the context in which we described, whether it's the information age, the cultural response, the political response, or the biological response, of the four, I was prepared today to say, as men, we can only affect one. Okay, and that's going to be biology. Either by learning game, getting in fit, learning social standings, or so forth. But the reality is there are others. We can affect culture when we make each other aware of the non-gender parity in our culture, when we look at non-gender parity in our laws and we become aware. When you reach out and touch 1,000 men and make them aware, we can affect culture. And culture, as we know, leads politics. And that's one of the things that I really, really value about the 21 Convention. You have men who are coming together to actualize themselves, their lives, and the world in which we live in.